Coming to church in the last month or so, Pastor Charlie has utilized the Dr. Seuss series as it correlates to Scripture. I thought I would follow in his footsteps and utilize a self-improvement book by Shel Silverstein called The Missing Piece. The book utilizes a triangle, or a part of a whole, that flips and turns through life trying to find itself through the other objects by attaching itself to things as it travels. The moral of the story is that you only find oneself from within, not from without. This led me to the greatest self-help book in the world. You can find it in many countries. You can find it in many languages. You can find it written in books, on tablets, on audio tapes and CDs. Movies have been made from the stories. Oscars have been won. Leading men and women have vied for parts in its production. On stages, trilogies, and 4-part series. We find them in hospitals, prisons, libraries, college campuses, hotel and motel rooms, in churches and synagogues, and you probably have one laying by your bedside. And many of you have brought one with you today. You may have read it from cover to cover. You probably have watched a movie or two, and most of you have heard a sermon or two from it. You may have been browbeat by it, threatened with it, screamed at, and demoralized with it. Some people use it to guilt you, shame you, and condemn you. They may have never read it from cover to cover, but they are adept at picking and choosing what they read and what they use. The self-help book that continues to be on the bestsellers list year after year, century after century, millennium after millennium is the Bible. I have a few. Over the years, I have acquired or have been given the New Oxford Annotated Bible with the Apocrypha, Life Application, Study Bible, New Living Translation, the Guidepost Parallel Bible, which includes the King James Version, the New International Version, the Living Bible, and the Revised Standard Version. I have the Good News Bible, the Gospel According to Jesus, and the Hebrew and Greek Bible. I also have the New Testament and Psalms and an uninclusive version, the Women's Bible Commentary, the New NRSV Concordance, and the Haley's Bible Handbook. Believe it or not. The easiest to me to read was the audiobook collection by James Earl Jones Reads the Bible. It's a great traveler. Mary and Mary Lou gave it to me for one of my many birthdays. See, I have had a few, as you can tell with my gray. Birthdays, that is, and I have known them a while. The one that is most sentimental to me is the Couples Bible. I gave it to June and Ted, Diane's mother and stepfather. It was returned to me when she stepped from this world into the next, beginning a new life with Christ. And the one thing that they all have in common, believe it or not, is dust. Did I surprise you? I'm not perfect, and especially with my housekeeping, so today I ask for forgiveness. Now you're probably asking yourself, what does life and Bibles have to do with the parable that was read this morning? Well, I will get to that in a minute, believe it or not. First, if no one has ever told you, let me be the first to say, did you know that there are stories about you and I and our love in the Bible? Let me begin with the book of Ruth. In the Old Testament, it's my favorite. To paraphrase, for those that haven't read it, Ruth followed Naomi back to her homeland when her husband was killed. Ruth worked in the fields to provide for them. Ruth intentionally got pregnant by Boaz, and when her son was born, the women did not give the baby to Boaz, but when her son was born, when her son was born, the women did not give the baby to Boaz. They handed him to Naomi, saying in chapter 4, "Blessed be the Lord who has left you this day without next of kin, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, have borne him." Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her bosom, and became his nurse. The women of the Bible, the women of the neighborhood, gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse, the father of David. We do what we have to do to take care of the one we love. Women were property, and so Ruth did what she had to do to take care of Naomi. The women of the village recognized that love. As a footnote, Ruth and Naomi's son Obed became the grandfather of David, and in the New Testament includes him among the ancestors of Jesus. If you get an opportunity, read the story. It's the 8th book in the Old Testament. It's short, but a good read. Now for the men in our congregation, you are here also. No, I'm not talking about warriors and slayers or builders. I'm on a love story mission. I don't know about you, but I love a good love story. So let's move on to 1 Samuel. By the way, it follows the book of Ruth in the Bible. What a coincidence. And I personally don't believe in coincidence. The love story between Jonathan and David, let me see if I can summarize it. Jonathan, son of Saul, was in love with David, son of Jesse, grandson of Obed. This love story is filled with war and anguish, fear and flight. I'll begin in 1 Samuel chapter 20. It reads, "David pleads with Jonathan, 'What have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin against your father that he's trying to take my life?' Jonathan, believe me, is in big-time denial. David reveals the truth in verse 3. Your father knows and well that you like me. And he thinks, do not let Jonathan know this, or he will be grieved. Denial runs deep, and so an elaborate plan is laid out to either prove David is right or David is wrong. Jonathan seals the plan in verse 16 and 17 by saying, Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord seek out the enemies of David. Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own life. The story goes on, and it is revealed that David is right. Jonathan and David met one last time in verse 41. They kissed each other and wept with each other and parted in peace. A wonderful but sad story, and it doesn't have a happy ending like the one that Ruth and Naomi had. As I mentioned earlier, we're in the Old Testament. This is our stories, and never let anyone tell you differently. Take time out of your busy schedule and set aside a period of time to read for yourself.